Old-timers on the job used to say that a man wasn't a good operator until he had a car collision. There's an easier way, however, to learn how to avoid car collisions. But first, let's see how one looks. Car collisions cause delays, disrupt schedules, and consequently the service for our patrons suffers. Car collisions result in injuries to passengers. Some are minor, some may result in permanent injuries, others in the death of passengers. In any event, we have failed to discharge our first obligation, the safe handling of our patrons. If involved in a car collision, you may receive injuries, sometimes painful and serious ones. Time lost due to injuries may result in loss of wages and consequent suffering to you and your family. Any kind of an accident involving a streetcar may cost money, but the claim costs resulting from car collisions are bound to be excessive, since only company equipment is involved. Responsibility for the claims of injured persons must be entirely assumed by the company. The claim costs resulting from a car collision of the type we just witnessed will average $1,000 each. In addition, damage to the cars requires time, labor, and money for repair, and results in cars being out of service for lengthy periods of time. The principal types of car collisions are shown here. Rear-end collisions, 60%. Side swipes in non-clearance areas, 17%. Backing and dropping back, 12%. All other types, 11%. These accidents occur because men fail to put into practice the basic fundamentals affecting operations. Let's examine some of these fundamentals and learn the easy way to avoid car collisions. Here is a simple method of converting speed from miles per hour to feet per second, which will give you a better realization of the effect of speed. Set down the figure for miles per hour, in this case 20. Add 1/2 that figure, or 10. The total, 30, is the speed in feet per second. 20 miles per hour equals 30 feet per second. Similarly, for 30 miles per hour, set down the figure 30. Add 1/2, or 15. The total, 45, is the speed in feet per second at 30 miles per hour, a car length a second. In a like manner, for 40 miles per hour, set down the figure 40. Add 1/2, or 20. Thus, 40 miles per hour is 60 feet per second, or a car length and a third each second. Now let's consider stopping distance. Many of you think that stopping distance is the braking distance of your car, but there are other factors to consider. Here is a car following another car at about 20 miles per hour. From our previous calculations, we learned that is 30 feet per second. Here the same scene is shown in animation to show you the components of stopping distance. Speed, 20 miles per hour, 30 feet per second. Time it takes to see that the car ahead is stopped is called perception time. During this time, approximately 1/2 second for an alert operator, your car moves forward 15 feet. The time it takes to think to apply brakes is called reaction time. In this reaction time of approximately 1/2 second, the car moves another 15 feet, or a total of 30 feet before the brake is applied. The brake is now applied. We show here the distance required for a normal service stop on good rail, level track. This braking distance is approximately 120 feet from a speed of 20 miles per hour. Bear in mind that this is not an emergency stop. The distance between cars when stopped is the reserve distance, in this case 10 feet. This is a desirable distance between cars, particularly on upgrades. After allowing a reserve distance of 10 feet in your total stopping distance, it is permissible to move closer to the car ahead so as to facilitate loading at heavy loading points or at loading zones. The total stopping distance of 150 feet consists of perception distance plus reaction distance plus braking distance. These components, perception, reaction, and braking distances that make up total stopping distance, are variable. The factors affecting these will be explained in later scenes. A PCC car at 20 miles per hour requires, in emergency, a total of 100 feet to stop. This is more than 2 car lengths. Notice the scale in car lengths below. 30 miles per hour requires 180 feet to stop in emergency. This is approximately 4 car lengths. 40 miles per hour requires 280 feet to stop. This is more than 6 car lengths. These figures for emergency stopping distances include perception and reaction distances and are based on an alert operator, good rail conditions, and level track. Note that the stopping distance at 40 miles per hour is about 4 times greater than at 20 miles per hour. This is a fundamental rule. If you double speed, your stopping distance increases to 4 times the original distance. Now let's see what the emergency stopping distances will be under the same conditions with hand control cars. Note that the stopping distances required for hand control cars are greater than those for PCC cars. With this in mind, the good operator will allow additional stopping distance when operating hand control type equipment. We saw before that the rear-end car collision type accounted for 60% of the total. This type is the most serious and costly. Let's examine the factors affecting rear-end car collisions. The first is following too close, as shown here. Some operators deliberately follow too close. Some misjudge their following distance. The next scenes will help you improve your judgment of distance. Here is 1 car length, or a little less than 50 feet. This is 2 car lengths, or approximately 90 feet. Here are 7 car lengths, or a little more than 300 feet. Under most conditions, a following distance of 300 feet is adequate if you are alert. Here is 300 feet with cars in motion. Your judgment will be improved if you'll visualize distances in car lengths. A number of conditions affect your stopping distance. Applying the brakes on a car only tends to stop the wheels from turning. The stopping of the car is accomplished by the friction between the wheels and rail. Here's a worm's eye view of a PCC car. On either a PCC car or hand control car, the braking is dependent upon 8 small points of contact between wheels and rail. On the PCC cars, you have the rail brakes for additional braking in emergency. Under slippery rail conditions caused by leaves on the rail, smog, light rain, tar, oil, and so forth, the friction between the wheels and the rail is materially reduced. In the following scene, watch the action of the wheel on the rail. On dry rail, note that the wheels are turning down to the stop, and friction between wheels and rail is at the maximum value. On slippery rail, note that the wheels lock and slide when the same brake pressure is applied as was used on the dry rail. This is caused by a loss of friction due to the slippery rail condition. The sliding action of the wheels results in a further loss of friction, and the stopping distance is considerably extended. Under slippery rail conditions, the good operator extends his following distance, knowing that additional braking distance is required, and applies brake pressure under the sliding point. Braking distance on down grades will be extended in proportion to the severity of the grade. Therefore, when following another car down grade, your following distance should be lengthened accordingly. A heavily loaded car requires more braking distance than a lightly loaded car, and consequently more following distance is required. Let's go back to the chart and see how these factors affect total stopping distance. Slippery rail conditions, down grades, or increased loads extend your braking distance and therefore require additional following distance. Fortunately, air failures are infrequent, but the possibility is ever present. When an air failure occurs on the hand control car, the generating method of stopping is used. Here it is, step by step. 1. Throw controller to off position. 2. Move reverse lever to reverse position. 3. Knock off main overhead switch. 4. Move controller to full-on position. 5. Touch sand lever. 6. Wind handbrake. Now let's watch the sequence of generating when done rapidly. To attain speed and proficiency in generating, practice it regularly when the street is clear of traffic and no passengers are on your car. When the car stops, remember to move controller to off position and return reverse lever to forward position. On PCC cars, throw the reverse lever forward to the braking position if normal braking fails to materialize when the brake pedal is depressed, and hold the brake pedal in the emergency position. When approaching a car standing just beyond a curved section of track, reduce speed and have car under control before entering the curve. Remember, sand does not hit the rail on curved track. In foggy and smoggy weather, reduced visibility requires reduced speeds. Cars should be operated through fog at a speed which will permit stopping in 1/2 the distance that can be seen ahead. When operating over public streets, the gong should be rung freely, and extra caution should be exercised at intersections. On private right-of-way, give warning when nearing road crossings. Approach and cross them with car under complete control. In the event of a blockade or delay during fog, the first consideration should be to establish protection from rear-end collisions by flagging. Refer to Transportation Department Order number 1241A, contained in your Important Orders and Instructions binder for flagging procedure. The second factor affecting stopping distance is distraction from the road ahead while the car is in motion. Some of the distractions are setting up transfers, waving to a blonde on the street, gawking in the mirror, writing on the day card, or doing other clerical duties. And picking up money dropped to the floor. Let's go back to the chart again and see how distractions of any nature affect stopping distance. A 1-second distraction at 20 miles per hour lengthens your perception distance to 45 feet and adds 30 feet to your stopping distance. A 2-second distraction adds 60 feet to your stopping distance. Each second of distraction lengthens your stopping distance and amount depending on your speed. Now, let's take up the subject of non-clearance curves. Watch the dots, which represent the overhang of the center of the car as it moves around the outside curve. Watch the dots at the front and rear of the car moving around the inside curve. The non-clearance area is the area shown by the overlapping of the rows of dots. At all non-clearance curves, signs bearing the letters NC are suspended from the overhead at the beginning and end of the non-clearance area. Knowing that two cars will not pass at a non-clearance curve, you must approach such a location fully alert for an opposite-bound movement and prepared to stop short of the non-clearance area if necessary. Why do car collisions occur? Do they occur because of efforts to maintain schedules, or because cars are hauling heavy and the operator is busy? No. An analysis of car collisions shows that 80% occurred when cars are operating on time. (80% occurred when carrying less than a seated load. Over 50% occurred when carrying less than 20 passengers. Does this suggest a relaxing of effort when the going is easy? Certain groups of trainmen are involved in car collisions more frequently than other groups. 60% of the car collisions involved men with less than 1 year service. Men with 2 to 10 years service are involved in 10%. (30% involve men with more than 10 years service. Does this suggest the need for more than adequate following distance for the inexperienced man, or the need for continuous alertness on the part of all men? To review briefly, learn to think of speed in terms of feet per second. Remember the 4 parts that make up stopping distance. Understand how stopping distance varies with change of speed. Maintain an adequate following distance at all times. Improve your judgment of distance by thinking in terms of car lengths. Allow additional stopping distance for bad rail conditions. An operator whose attention is distracted while the car is in motion might as well be blindfolded. Understand proper operation at non-clearance curves. Car collisions are unnecessary. You, and you alone, can avoid them by strict alertness to the road ahead and by maintaining adequate following distance at all times.